everybody, and welcome to the Punchboard Report. My name is Blake Ryder. Today, we're looking at Glüx, designed by Jakob Andrusch and published in 2016 by Queen Games. Now, this is a pure area control game with a very low point of entry from a rules standpoint. Quick explanation, but offers a ton of really good depth based on how simple it is to explain this game to people. Very, very cool system where you're basically going to be placing these tiles on the board, and the tiles look like dice faces. So they have like 1 to 6 pips, those little white dots on these faces, and you're going to use those tokens that you place to allow you to place additional tokens, because you can essentially place tokens relative to the tokens you already have on the board, relative to how many pips or spots those tokens have on them, and that will allow you to place additional tokens on the board and hopefully get you into these specific area control points. This game, spoiler alert, kind of a hidden gem. I never had heard of it. I just kind of stumbled upon it at a flea market, at the Gen Con flea market, and I was just perusing the flea market, saw it, never had heard of it, did a little bit of research, sounded interesting, bought it, and spoiler alert, really happy I bought it. Let me tell you what, let's get it set up on the table, and we'll be back after that for some thoughts. Okay, so this is Glüx, and we're set up for 4 players. And what we're doing in this game is trying to get these chips into these areas on the board. And at the end of the game, we're going to add up the number of pips, meaning these white spots, on the in each of the areas for each color. And then whoever has the most of these pips in the area will get 4 points. Whoever has the second most will get 2 points at the end of the game. Players have a bag of these chips, and these chips are kind of like dice in the sense that they always add up to 7 on opposite sides. So the 6 and the 1 will have will be back to back, and then the 3 and the 4 will be back to back, and then the 5 and the 2 will be back to back. So they always add up to 7. And then players have these bags of chips, and on their turn, at the beginning of the game, everyone's going to draw one of their chips out, place it right on top of their home marker, and you can place it on either side. And then the game begins. So on your turn, you reach into your baggie and you pull out a chip at random. And in this situation, the yellow drew this one, the 5 and the 2. And now they can place it either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can place it there, 6. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can place it there, relative to this 6th spot. And then they can place it on either side. So maybe I'll place it here, and then I'll place it on the 5. But I theoretically could place it on the 2. But what this means, let's say I place it on the 2, that means on my next turn, I can place 1, 2, I can place there, 1, 2, I can place there, or I can go back to that original one and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and place it there. So as you place more and more chips on the board, you're going to have more and more optionality in terms of where to place. And then red would go, and red has this 4 there, so it means whatever chip they place could be 1, 2, 3, 4 there, or 1, 2, 3, 4, they could be there. So red may go, and then red may pull one out, and they may pull this one out, which is also a 4, 3, and they may go 1, 2, 3, 4, and place it there, and then place it on the 3 side, knowing that they could then go 1, 2, 3, and get it right in the meat of that spot there. And then green would go. And then the game is just going to repeat. Everyone's going to be placing these chips, so green has the 6, so theirs can go either there or there, and then purple would go, and then theirs is the 5, so they can go either there or there. So let's take a look at what it may look like a little bit later in the game. So at a certain point, it might look like this. So now it's purple's turn. Now purple has a couple of interesting options here that I want to point out. First, so they have a 3 here. So 1, 2, 3 puts them right on top of that. That is a legal play. Every single space could theoretically have up to 2 chips on it. So one option that purple would have, if they drew a chip out, let's say they drew this one out, they could theoretically place it there. And now yellow loses control of that chip, and now this is permanent, meaning that once a stack has 2, that will no longer change. That can no longer place on top of that. So every single piece that you have that only is 1 deep, other than this one, you can never place on top of an opponent's starting chip. Other than that, every chip that is a single is theoretically vulnerable. So that is one thing that is worth noting for the purple guy. And strategically, though, some players will actually place on top of their own pieces, meaning, so this right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's a 2. But theoretically, if I wanted to, if this chip was ever threatened, or even if it wasn't, I just wanted to solidify its position, I could theoretically place again there, because 6 away is there, and then I can go, boom, 4. And now that is permanent, meaning no one can place on top of that. So you can theoretically place on top of your own chips to protect them, which in the game is strategic at certain times, depending on what your opponents have on the board. So that's one consideration. The other consideration is this one. So this one, it's purple's turn, like I said. So they can place 1, 2, 3. They can place there. So let's hypothetically say they place this there. now they effectively cut off this chip from going that way. Because when you place a piece, you have to have a clear path to get to it. So 1, 2, 3, I can no longer place there because that is in the way, and then 1, 2, I can no longer place there because it is also in the way as well. So in this situation, this 6 is actually, while it is a high number, it is actually kind of inhibitive given this situation. So hypothetically, it might behoove the yellow guy to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and place on top of that something smaller. So that's one of the interesting things about the game, is that the higher numbers are obviously, if you get them in here, are going to give you a nice amount of points or pips towards getting points. However, note that when you have a 6, you need to actually be, if you want to be able to place relative, you need 6 clear spaces, which later in the game is very, very challenging. So the lower numbers, while they give you fewer area control points or pips in those areas, will make it a lot easier, because now I can place there, or there. Or if this was a 2, I can place again there, or or I can cover that. So smaller numbers make it a lot easier to navigate. So that is the game. You're going to be placing. You can always place one chip on top of your own home chip. So you can place one chip on top of your own home chip to change the value of that. And then again, once you place one chip on top of there, then it is no longer able to be changed. And also worth noting that opponents can get into these spaces in your own home territory. So theoretically, someone could try to overtake that. However, like I mentioned, opponents can never go on top of an opponent's home chip. So that's the game. You go until each player's bag is empty. You add up the total number of pips in each one of those spots. 4 points for whoever's in first. Ties are friendly, so if 2 people are tied for first, they'll each get 4, and there's no second place. Otherwise, if there's a tie for second, each player will get 2. And that's the game. You add them up. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. Okay, so that was Glüx. And as you can see, this game is so easy to explain. I've explained this game in minutes to people. And for a game that you can explain really, really quickly, you can get sucked into this game because you're just calculating, 3 spaces, 4 spaces, 6 spaces. Should I put this on the 1 or the 6? And the fact that those 6s are so valuable once they're inside of those area control points, but then they become almost useless in terms of navigating and during the game, and then you almost have to then kind of, sometimes you're a target if you're a 6 in there, so people are going to try to cover you, so then you try to cover yourself, and it offers a lot of really good tension in this game, a lot of really good tension. This game shines at 4 players because everyone's got their quadrant, everyone's ready to go, and then everyone's kind of, it's guns blazing. That's how this game works. Though, that said, it also is good at other player counts. The first time I played this game was with 2 players. It is a smaller board. You flip the board over, other side, and it's just a smaller board. So I happen to love it at 4 because I think everyone's kind of going at it. But I think it definitely works at 2 with a much smaller board, and it also works at 3. So, honestly, it works well at all player counts. I just happen to really like it at 4. But this game is, it really slipped by under the radar, and I don't really personally understand why. It's a really good game. If this is my go-to game when I'm trying to show area control to newcomers to gaming, and frankly, though, I could play this with gamers or non-gamers, and everyone really gets really into it. If you've watched other videos of mine, I love showing games to people. I love bringing people into the hobby. And when I do that, I like to show them games that they probably have never experienced anything like this before. And frankly, I think Glüx really fits that bill because there is, I've never played an area control game like this, and especially for new gamers, this is going to be kind of a very unique and new experience for them. So I love it for that purpose. Other things, there's no theming in this game. It is straight up abstract. There is zero theming. It is completely abstracted game. It is purely a mechanism game. So if you're a person who likes getting enriched in a theme, that's not here. This is literally placing tiles on a map. Their tiles have numbers on them. You move that number of spaces with other placements, and that's really it. But for me, I don't necessarily personally need super enriching theme to get into a game. Don't get me wrong, I love good theme, but a game like this that has really solid core bones, and a game that I can just get lost in between turns, like I'm making my turn, and then I'm after you do your turn, you can then draw your next token out of the bag while everyone else goes. You just don't show it to people, but you can still do that to kind of think. And even though sometimes this game can be a little analysis paralysis inducing, it can be because you're kind of like looking at all your tokens on the board and trying to calculate all the different, places you could theoretically go and what'll give you the easiest access to other area control points and what will allow you to block people and what will allow you to, go on top of other people's tokens. And while it can induce analysis paralysis, the fact that you can draw your token out in between turns and really calculate those decisions, and frankly, even though my opponent may be really thinking and grinding, I'm really grinding too, so I'm not even minding it if they're taking a little long, because I'm trying to figure out this as well. This game is very, very cool. So, if you like area control games, if you like games that you can explain to people quickly, I frankly think I can explain this to younger people that are not necessarily, at the age yet where they can get into super complex games, but they can get into this one and really, really sink their teeth into it and feel like they played a really solid game. So, tell you what, if this sounded interesting to you, check it out. I assume it's probably out of print because it's an older title, but I bet you can probably find it on the aftermarket if this sounded interesting to you. So, thank you again for watching. My name is Blake Ryder.